They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again while expecting a different result. If I believed that, I wouldn't play video games, and I certainly wouldn't be playing roguelikes. I've got to believe this is the run where it all comes together. This time I'm going to beat that boss. This time I'm going to make it to the end of the run. This time will be different. That's what I tell myself as I die for the umpteenth time in Absolum. A roguelike beat-em-up that's fun enough to convince me it just might be true. There is, of course, the undeniable possibility that I've gone round the bend, full on cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. There are large parts of Absolum's fusion of genres that don't work, and those growing pains are most obvious early on. But if you push through that weak start, and get to the point where you have some permanent rewards have opened up the map, and runs end with you operating with a full kit and making good progress, it comes together quite nicely, even if it's still never quite the game I want it to be.
Magic molded our civilization.
Because Absolum is a roguelike, you need a reason to die, and a reason to come back. The reason to die is simple. The land of Talum, broken by a magical cataclysm, has been taken over by Sun King Azra. Wizards are enslaved, and the general populace, still a bit miffed by the whole breaking the world thing, are understandably not super upset about it. You play as one of the rebels using that forbidden magic in an attempt to bring Azra down. The why you'll come back part is because you're working for Achawi, the last of the Root Sisters, and as you bite it, she swoops in and saves your ass from being condemned to a permanent end. Live, die, get saved by Achawi, repeat. The Sun King must die, and you gotta kill him.
We are all that stands against Azra's tyranny.
Now don't get me wrong, I love a good old-fashioned somebody done the world wrong and now that somebody gotta die story as much as the next guy. But Absolum's problem is this particular version isn't that interesting, especially early on. Yeah, there are some compelling character moments, the general history of the world is cool, and some conversations enticingly imply more questions than they answer.
I didn't have the wisdom to accept that.
There's more going on here than meets the eye, but a lot of it is couched in a fairly generic fantasy setting. Dwarves live underground, and they delve too greedily and too deep, figuratively. Elves have a mythical lost land. The strong rule in many places, so you can gain entrance by beating up the current big boss, blah blah blah.
We must obey the strong. That's the only rule.
The story does go to some cool places eventually, and like Hades, you gotta play it to completion multiple times to see everything. But man does it take a while to get there. It's good, then, that the playing part of Absolum rules. In a lot of ways, it's a standard beat-em-up with a set map and 4 different characters to pick from. Carl, the bruiser dwarf with a gun. Galandra, the elven knight with a massive sword. Cider, a nimble thief who is almost more machine than woman. And Brome, the frog-shaped spellcaster. Each character has a standard combo, a throw, a strike unique to that character, a couple of special attacks tied to a meter, and an ultimate attack. The real sicko stuff comes when you combine all of that to form long combos, bounce enemies off walls or each other, and chain everything together in a symphonic beatdown that would make the deepest action game aficionado blush. Absolum was made by the teams behind Streets of Rage 4, and as you'd expect, it absolutely has the sauce. I particularly loved the way so many of the characters' moves paid homage to the greats. Cider's gyro drop is essentially Ryu Hayabusa's Azuna drop. Many of Galandra's moves recall Devil May Cry's Dante, and so on. If you know, you know. If you don't, they're just cool moves. The big thing separating Absolum from its beat-em-up brethren, aside from the lost-in-this-sauce combo-mad gameplay, is its focus on defense. You can dodge, which is pretty normal for a modern beat-em-up, but if you dodge towards an enemy at the right time, you can deflect their attacks, potentially opening them up. If you're feeling particularly spicy, you can time your strikes with an enemy's attack to cause a clash and stun them for a hot second, allowing you to lay into them with a sweet, sweet punish combo. This is harder, but the payoff is huge. And it feels great when you land it against a boss who is kicking the crap out of you and then the timing clicks and they can't hit you no more. On a moment-to-moment gameplay level, Absolum's bona fides are unimpeachable.
Death is not
Its problems instead stem from its structure as a roguelike. Unlocking new rituals that power up your attacks, deflects, clashes, dodges, and so on each run is fine. I particularly like the ones that spawn throwable knives, and allow you to extend combos by locking dudes into a bubble or hitting them with chain lightning. Finding a mount to help you out? Awesome. Buying or finding some trinkets to boost your stats, or hiring a mercenary, or finding a chicken to follow you around and help out in combat, that stuff is great. What sucks is the parts of your character's kit have clearly been chopped up and segmented into upgrades called inspirations, for you to temporarily acquire during your runs. Galandra's dive kick, amazing, life-changing. The same is true of her 3-hit sword combo. She should always have it. She doesn't, only because this is a roguelite and we have to have something to upgrade. When you go from that 1-hit sword attack to the 3-hit combo, it's like being struck by lightning. The same is true of Cider's legally distinct Azuna drop, or her ability to dash through enemies. These are core parts of these characters' identities and kits. They shouldn't all be locked behind upgrades. The other problem is the persistent progression. Absolum isn't a game you're meant to beat on the first run. You're supposed to die. A lot, while you build up the currency needed to acquire the permanent upgrades, and find the new paths full of rewards to get you through future runs. In both solo and co-op, I often felt like I was dying because my numbers just weren't high enough. This structure might work in a game like Hades, but there's very little narrative meat to chew on between runs here, and in a beat-em-up, a genre where you're traditionally able to get by on sheer skill, it feels bad to be a slave to the evil god of numbers. I genuinely hate it when RPG elements get in the way of my action game, and that happens a lot in Absolum's early hours. You always start in the same place, and you have very limited paths to choose from. That means seeing the same enemies, environments, and bosses over and over and over again. Yes, there are quests, and exciting new things do pop up from time to time, but there is a lot of repetition here, and Absolum doesn't handle it in the way that the best roguelikes do. In the early hours, I often felt like I was a broken record, testing that definition of insanity. Even the joy of finding a secret chest is dulled by the fact that it's always there, in the same place, every time. While the stuff you'll get varies and new things do get added, the map itself never fundamentally changes. There's not enough rogue to this roguelite. It can't just be a progression system. It has to be everything around that too. And implementing that clashes with the way beat-em-ups work. It does eventually click. Around 8 hours in, my mastery and having enough numbers dovetailed, and I started to make more and more progress on each run. The jump was pretty substantial, and once that happened, I began to enjoy myself a lot more. On the one hand, yay, less repetition. On the other hand, I think there's something to be said for games that using mechanics and structure to reinforce their narrative. Dying over and over again while you work to take down a tyrant would suck. It would wear on you. I think that decision helps Absolum's story, but I don't think that the story is strong enough, especially initially, to earn that. It doesn't feel intentional. Instead, it feels like padding out a runtime that could, and should, be much shorter. And it sucks to feel this way because so much of Absolum is so good. When it hits, kids. It's beautiful, the soundtrack is wonderful, the combat has the sauce, there are cool build opportunities, and on it goes. But man, could I have gone without that repetition. There's a better version of this game somewhere that's about half of the 20 or so hours it took me to see the conclusion of the main story. Unfortunately, it's not the one we got, and if I wasn't reviewing Absolum, I probably would have bowed out before it ever clicked. My co-op partner did, and I can't blame him for it. Absolum is an excellent beat-em-up let down by a roguelite structure that doesn't suit it. I hate being limited by numbers instead of skill in action games, and in the early hours here, it feels like you're a slave to them. Once you get to the point where every run has you making substantial progress and the story picks up, Absolum is very compelling, but it took me a long time to get there. Gorgeous artwork, an excellent soundtrack, and smart combat spread out among several distinct characters do a lot to carry it, but they can't fix the feeling of dread when I died again, and realized I would have to do some variation of the same exact thing once more.
Death is just another step on your journey.
I'm not against failure. I just wish there was more variety to it, and Absolum doesn't find that until a good way into its runtime. That it manages to emerge as a compelling beat-em-up in spite of that is a testament to the skill and work of its developers, but it would be a lot better if it just got on with it. Unlike Absolum's heroes, I've only got one life to live. For more, check out our reviews of Hades 2 and 2XKO, and for everything else in roguelites, beat-em-ups, and roguelite beat-em-ups, and everything in between, keep it here at IGN.